Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. I am Eliana Duran and welcome to our Submitting the End of the Year and Final Grantee Progress Report workshop. Alongside me I have our National Service Officer Tracy Rollins Johnson and my colleague and fellow Grants Management Specialist Jesse Chavez. This webinar is being recorded and uploaded to ServeDC's YouTube channel. If you have any questions at any point during this presentation, please feel free to submit your questions to our National Service email address at americorps.dc.gov. The agenda for this presentation is as follows: introductions, closing out your AmeriCorps grant, what is a closeout, grantee closeout responsibilities, grantee closeout checklist, closeouts does not affect, what are the components of the GPR, what is a performance measure, performance measures tab, performance measures data, what is a progress report, who completes the final grantee progress report, when is the final GPR due, grantee reporting period, narrative, submitting a GPR, where do I report, reviewing feedback and responding to clarification items in the GPR, and resources. Closing out your AmeriCorps grant. CNCS grants usually are awarded for a 3-year project period consisting of 3 yearly budget periods. CNCS direct grantees are responsible for meeting the submission deadlines for closeout. Closeout documents are due to your corporation grants officer no later than 90 days after the expiration of the project period. The corporation will not issue any new funds to grantees that have outstanding closeout issues or unsubmitted documents. For activities that will extend beyond the project period and dates, the grantee must seek a no-cost extension from the grants officer. What is a closeout? The grant closeout is the process by which the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity determines that all applicable administrative actions and all required work of the federal award have been completed according to the 2 CFR 200, Section 343. Grantees will have at least 30 days to submit the following: a final progress report submitted in Encore, the final FFR, Federal Financial Report, an equipment inventory, inventory of unused or residual supplies, final grant reimbursement, and signature closeout sheet. Some of the forms listed may not apply to a fixed price grant. Grantee closeout responsibilities: pay outstanding obligations, close out subgrants, submit closeout documents as necessary, enter final federal financial report FFR in e-grants, return unobligated funds, determine whether there are existing programmatic or administrative issues to be resolved, ensure all final amounts are equal, ensure the SF 425 FFR and PSC 272 are equal, FFR and e-grants, FFR and payment management system, PMS, drawdown in PMS. Grantee closeout checklist, mid-year member evaluation forms, end of the year member evaluation forms and member exit forms. Exit interview have been completed for each member, and each has been filled in the appropriate member's file. All documents were completed within the allotted time frame. All members have been exited from the AmeriCorps portal and Encore with up-to-date contact information, including name, email, phone, and cell phone number. All member issues, including those related to the approved National Online Reporting System, have been satisfactorily resolved. All members have been provided information on obtaining their educational award, including the phone number and website to the trust office. The Commission does not manage the education award. Grantee closeout checklist. All follow-up from site visit reports has been submitted and closed out per State Service Commission staff. All progress reports, including final data, have been accurately and thoroughly completed utilizing Encore. Final Federal Financial Report. The FFR and Periodic Expense Report, the PER, have been reviewed for compliance with the contractually agreed to match requirements and subsequently have been approved. Note: if match requirements were not satisfied, the final reimbursement amount will be reduced accordingly. Final expenses, as reported on the FFR and PER, agree with and have been accurately captured on the program's general ledger and accounting system. Grantee closeout checklist. All asset and liability accounts applicable to the program have been properly adjusted to reflect a $0 balance. All staff member time charged to the grant, including in-kind, is documented and appropriately maintained according to OMB requirements. All equipment or supplies having an aggregate value of $5,000 or greater that were purchased with grant funds have been properly reported to the State Service Commission. Final program report covering the life of the grant. Closeouts does not affect. The closeout of a grant does not affect the requirement to retain records pursuant to the grant conditions, the requirements and rights for audit pursuant to the grant conditions, the right of AmeriCorps to disallow costs and recover funds based on A133 or other audit or other review. The obligation of the grantee is to return any funds due to AmeriCorps as a result of later refunds, corrections, cost disallowance, or other actions. Retaining records. ServDC and its grantees will retain all records for 3 years from submission of the final FFR or 3 years after the completion of an audit. Upon official notification from AmeriCorps, ServDC will notify the grantees that the grant has been closed and will provide grantees with the time frame in which records must be maintained, as well as the rights of AmeriCorps and or ServDC noted above. Components of the GPR. The final Grantee Progress Report, GPR, consists of a set of narrative responses. No performance data element or performance measure data are requested on the final GPR. Any additional performance measure data collected since the last end-of-year GPR submission should be reported in the Narratives tab in Narrative Field 3. Program reports are any reports that are not service reports. For example, reports that members do not complete. Program reports include the following as well as any custom reports your program or state may require. Encore GPR report includes progress reports, program progress initiatives, demographics, success or challenges, best practices. Please note, AmeriCorps state and national GPRs are not visible to grantees and e-grants until 2 months prior to the due date. We expect 100% compliance for 100% of our AmeriCorps programs. Now, at this time, I'll be turning it over to my colleague, Jessie Chavez.
Thank you, Eliana. What is performance measures? Performance measures for AmeriCorps grant summarizes the measurable outcomes of the program as approved during the grant award process. The performance measures include the output, outcome, definitions of key terms, interventions, data collection plans, and instruments. Performance measures are part of the approved grant application. Each grantee agrees to adhere to and operate the program in accordance with the approved grant application. Performance Measures tab. The content of the explanation should be as follows, provided in the chart below. If you include performance measures data from the previous year that were not reported in the prior end-of-year GPR, it may appear that the targets for the current year were met when they really were not. Explanation should be provided for any output or outcome where the actual value for the current grant year is lower than the target value. Continuing with the Performance Measures tab, please take a look at the image provided. To enter an explanation, click on the Enter Explanation button in the Explanation and Corrective Action column. By clicking this button, open the text box where the explanation could be entered. Please note there is a 1,000-character limit on each explanation. Any text entered above that character limit will not be saved. If the explanation entered for one output or outcome target applies to other targets for the measure, click the Copy button. which will automatically copy the explanation to other outputs and outcomes in the measures. If you wish to provide a different explanation for other outputs or outcomes in the measure, enter those explanations by clicking the Enter Explanation button for those outputs and outcomes. Performance measure data reported in the GPR should not be duplicated in any other AmeriCorps GPR submitted by your organization. Performance measure data. Data submitted in the progress report must be valid. For example, the data collected and reported must accurately align with the performance measures instructions, approved program design, and grant application, and be verifiable. For example, the grantee must be able to demonstrate the data is accurate. Source documentation that supports the reported results must also be maintained as grant records. What is a progress report? A progress report is a document that explains in detail how far you've gone towards the completion of a project. It outlines the activities you've carried out, the tasks you've completed, and the milestones you've reached in relation to your project plan. Progress reports are intended to reflect and tell the impact that the AmeriCorps member is making at your organization. All numbers should reflect the individual AmeriCorps members served, not your agency overall. These reports provide details on the organization's progress towards the achievement of approved performance measures and other grant activities. The progress report also serves as a monitoring tool. Who completes the final grantee progress report, also referred to as GPR? All AmeriCorps grantees who are concluding the grant year of their grant period must complete a final GPR. The final GPRs are reviewed at the conclusion of the grant period for each prime grant, which includes competitive cost reimbursement, competitive fixed amount, competitive EAP, formula cost reimbursement, formula fix, EAP, etc. When is the final GPR due? The GPR is due 90 days after the grant end date. If you cannot meet the submission deadline for the progress report, you must request an extension from your portfolio manager. Request for an extension may be granted when the report cannot be finished in a timely manner for reasons legitimately beyond the control of the grantee, and 2, AmeriCorps receives a request explaining the need for an extension before the due date of the report. Reporting period. The reporting period is from the beginning of your current grant cycle through the end date of your grant cycle, inclusive of any no-cost extensions received. Note that this progress report is cumulative for the entire 3-year grant period. Grantee reporting period. In the image displayed, you'll see the program start date, first semi-annual report due date, second semi-annual report due date. For instance, if the program starts on July 1st, the first semi-annual report due date will be November 1st, and the second 1 month after the end of the program year. Fixed grantee reporting period. Also in this image, you'll see the program start date and report due date. For instance, if the program start date is July 1st through August 1st, the due date for the reporting will be December 15th. If the program start date is December 1st, the due date for that reporting will also be July 31st. no matter the type of grantee reporting period. They are all submitted on Encore and by email confirmation. Reporting period. The reporting period is from the middle of your 2020 grant year through October 30th, 2021. For performance data elements, report all data collected during that time period, July 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, regardless of the member cohort or program year to which the data are connected. For performance measures, report all data pertaining to your 2020 program year, plus any previously unreported data from the previous 2019 program year. Any activity taking place during the reporting period that corresponds to a later grant year should be reported on the subsequent end-of-year GPR. The Narrative tab. The Narrative tab asks grantees to reflect on activities and accomplishments during the 2020 program year. Click on the accordion panel to enter your program's narrative. When the accordion panels are closed, the green check marks indicate that text has been entered into the text box. Text must be entered in every narrative field before submitting. Please note, if you included performance measure data from the previous year that were not reported in your prior end-of-year GPR, noted as ongoing on your prior report due to continuing program activities or data collection, it may appear that the target for the current year were met when they were not. Explanation should be provided for any outputs or outcomes where the actual value for the current grant year is lower than the target value. Submitting your GPR. When all the data has been entered into the progress report, go to the Summary tab and click the Grantee Submit to AmeriCorps button. If you encounter an error when trying to submit, check to see if you have a final GPR whose reporting period ends on or before the reporting period of the end of year GPR. If so, the final GPR needs to be submitted before the end of year GPR can be submitted. Where do I report? Grantees must complete and submit progress reports in Encore twice a year. ServDC communicates due dates for progress reports in the grant agreement and through updates via email as appropriate.
Thank you, Jesse. Reviewing feedback and responding to clarification items in the GPR. The following text fields for feedback and clarification appear on all tabs where data are entered. Program Officer Feedback may contain feedback from the AmeriCorps Portfolio Manager. Grantees are not required to provide clarification regarding this feedback. Program Officer Clarification Items contains clarification items from the AmeriCorps Portfolio Manager. Grantees are required to respond to these clarification items by making the necessary changes and corrections to the GPR content. Grantee clarification items. Grantees use this text field to enter their responses to the clarification items that appear in the Program Officer Clarification Items field. Please note there is a 1,984 character limit on the grantee clarification text box. Any text entered above the character limit will not be saved. Reviewing feedback and responding to clarification items in the GPR. Charts on the Performance Indicators tab and the Performance Measures tab may also contain clarification columns to signal specific items on the chart that require clarification. After responding to all clarification items, the grantee returns the report to AmeriCorps by clicking the Grantee Submit to AmeriCorps button on the Summary tab. If the progress report does not require clarification or all clarification items have been satisfactorily addressed, the AmeriCorps Portfolio Manager will set the GPR status to Reviewed. The grantee will receive an email notification and will be able to review any feedback provided in the progress report when the report is in reviewed status. ServeDC prides itself on its robust, responsive social media presence. Please feel free to check out our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ServeDC, at DCServe. For more resources, sign up for AmeriCorps' emailing list, or visit Managing AmeriCorps Grants, Grant Terms and Condition, GPR Resources, AmeriCorps State and National Knowledge Network, and the Zoom Grants FAQ. If you have any additional questions or concerns, please feel free to submit them via email at americorps@dc.gov. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any additional questions about this presentation, please contact our ServeDC team via email or phone at the following addresses and numbers listed. Thank you.